So coming up this weekend is going to be UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Imavov, and I'm very much looking forward to this card because it is yet another card that's going to be taking place in front of fans, in front of an arena, and of course, being in front of an arena, there have been quite a few fan-friendly matchups being made. Now, it does have to be said that UFC 302 may have been a little bit disappointing on that kind of side, just with the fact that there was no knockouts, and overall wasn't the most finishes on the card. But I think that this one's going to deliver. And talking about UFC 302, I also think it's kind of crazy to think that now the next pay-per-view card that we are going to be getting is going to be the return of Conor McGregor, which of course I'm very excited about, and I'm sure many other people are very excited about that as well. To talk about this one though, I am going to give my predictions for every single fight on the card, but before I do get into that, I did want to talk about We Want Picks. We Want Picks is a $10 per month premium membership service on their website, wewantpicks.com, but you can sign up and get a 3-day free trial if you do sign up using my code ARTEM, and you can cancel during that 3-day period as well and not get charged if it is something that you are not interested in. But if you did want to support my channel in any sort of way, that is actually the best way to do it, other than subscribing of course, because I do get an affiliate commission for that, so you can support my channel but also get access to so many We Want Picks premium membership things, such as Angelo's Bets, Jacob's Bets. There's the Pick GPT AI on there, which was developed by the nuclear engineer, which is crazy to think about, and then also just a bunch of other stuff in there. Of course, already Jacob and Angelo have placed some bets for this card, and you do get access to articles that I write every single week talking about the regional scene and just talking about all of the best fights that you can watch that are non-UFC related for that weekend. And yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. Aside from that, there is a Discord, a We Want Picks Discord, which is linked in the description of my video. That is 100% free to join. I think there's 6,000 people in that Discord, so there's many people to talk MMA and also other sports and just a lot of other stuff as well, and you can talk to me in that Discord as well if you do so desire. But now let's get into the card. This is the Tapology order. I'm not 100% if this is going to end up being the official order of the card, but I am just going to go by what Tapology has here. And kicking off the card is going to be Puja Tomar taking on Rayanne Amanda. And it's quite an interesting fight because Puja Tomar is definitely a fighter that I believe the UFC are going to push and are going to probably put a little bit of back end behind because she already is an incredibly popular fighter. I think she's got 437,000 followers on Instagram. Of course, India as well has a massive population, so there's a massive potential fan base for the UFC if they can get quite a few fighters from India to get into the UFC and then get some massive wins. And there is actually already a pretty decent regional scene over there in India because of this company or this promotion called Matrix Fight Night, which to my understanding is run by and owned a bunch of Bollywood stars. So there's a lot of money behind these shows and they are pretty high level production and also just kind of the best regional scene that India does have to offer. Before that though, Puja Tomar did fight for one championship and didn't really have the most successful run. Now, in that one championship run, she did get exposed quite a lot for a lack of grappling. If you do just look at her record numbers on a page, 3 losses by submission, no wins by submission. You go through as well all of her losses aside from one by submission. Stamp Fairtex got her back and pretty much finished her on the ground there. Maybe could have locked up a rear naked choke, but ended up just kind of throwing some elbows and the fight was ended there. She had a Muay Thai fight there. And aside from that, she's left one championship or was released and then just kind of knocked a bunch of people out on the Indian regional scene. They are fun fights to watch. This girl here, though, that she knocked out in 20 seconds, I don't know how she managed to get a 2-1 record because she got hit with one punch and then just shot up and like turned her back. It was odd. And then this opponent here, Anastasia Fefanova, just gave up. I guess I'll talk about that fight later. But yeah, Puja Tomar, she's got a Kung Fu background, to my knowledge. I think she's actually been a Kung Fu national champion multiple times in India, and she is actually a very talented striker. It's just that her grappling, I haven't really seen any of it, to be fair, actually, aside from a little bit of clinching against this opponent, Fefanova, for years, so maybe it's improved, but we have seen a massive weakness in her grappling in the past. Rayanne Amanda, or also known as Rayanne dos Santos as well, and you might even see her under a different name as well, because I believe she's engaged to Colton England, who's another MMA fighter. But anyway, Rayanne Amanda, she's actually a very talented grappler, a former atomweight, so she's very small for the weight class. Also worth noting as well, Puja Tomar, former atomweight as well. So both of these girls are very small for 115 pounds in general. Fought at atomweight against Julian DeCourcy, won the belts there, and I believe she accepted this fight against Talita Alencar on short notice. Ended up losing that one, got taken down a bunch of times, did attempt and I think got a couple of takedowns as well, but ultimately was controlled in that matchup. And I think Alencar even landed more strikes on her, which isn't really the best look, but she was on the Contender Series. She lost to Denise Gomes, and Denise Gomes kind of went on to fight Angela Hill in the rankings, and also has a fight on this card as well. Put up a competitive scrap against her, mostly took place on the feet. Didn't really see too much of her grappling, but Amanda is a very talented grappler, and that's just where I think that she is going to win this fight against Puja Tomar. Puja Tomar, I just don't know how good her grappling is. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I haven't seen her grapple for a very long time. She does look very good on the feet. I'm going to say she probably will be the better striker. Very powerful. Leg kicks is a big part of her game. She throws a lot of leg kicks. That is how she did beat this girl, Fiafanova. But it almost seemed like she hurt her to the body at the end of the fourth round. But after the first round, where Fiafanova looked pretty good, she kind of just become a punching bag for Puja Tomar and then gave up in between round 4 and 5. It was a weird stoppage. The commentary didn't really tell us why she quit either. She just stopped fighting. But in this one here, I think minus 240 is pretty wide for Amanda. It really is, to be honest. But on the feet, I think Tomar is going to be the better striker. I think she is actually a very good striker. But I think Amanda, if she does go out there and does wrestle and grapple, I think that the advantage she's going to have in that sort of area is going to be way too much. So give me Amanda in this one here. Her by submission or decision. It seems like most people are going by decision, but I think Amanda might lock up a submission. That's kind of what I'm going to go with this one. And now we have Cody Stamann, I should say, taking on Taylor Lapulius. I do like Taylor Lapulius in the matchup. I think that Taylor Lapulius is going to be the better striker, and the fight is going to take place on the feet. Now, Cody Stamann is a very solid wrestler. Sorry, I just had a little ad pop up from Tapology. Cody Stamann is a wrestler, and he's a very good wrestler, but most recently he has been fighting a lot of fights on the feet for some reason, most notably his fight here against Luan Lacerda in Brazil. That fight mostly took place on the feet, and you could even make an argument that Luan Lacerda could have actually won that fight. And Luan Lacerda is not a very good striker, in my opinion, at all, although Stamann does have pretty solid boxing. He knocked out Eddie... What's going on? And he lost to Douglas Silva de Andrade. But the point is with Cody Stamann, I think that he would have a very solid chance if I knew that he was going to go out there and shoot for takedowns over and over and over again. But Taylor Lapulius has proven to us already that he does have very solid takedown defense. He does have very solid striking technique as well, although he can be pretty low volume at times as well. But overall, I do think that Taylor Lapulius is going to be the better striker out of the two. He did take on Farid Basharat, which you could make an argument is a similar stylistic matchup between the two, as Cody Stamann, of course, is also a wrestler. But before that, he did beat Callan Loughran in a very close fight, though, to be fair. Very, very close fight. And he was just beating really good guys on the regional scene for Aries FC before then. I do think this is a good opportunity for a comeback for Taylor Lapulius, as I do think he's a very talented guy. Definitely, if you put it all together, you might be able to see Taylor Lapulius make a run into the rankings, although he is now 32 years old. Cody Stamann, to my knowledge, has actually used to be ranked and just isn't anymore. I think that Taylor Lapulius should be able to win this one here. I think he's the more technical striker. I think he's the better striker. He can be very low volume at times, which could be a problem here. But Cody Stamann has shown some willingness recently to keep the fight on the feet. And I think if that is the case, Lapulius should be able to run away with it. If Stamann wants to wrestle, it's going to increase his chances to win a lot more. But I still do like Taylor Lapulius to win this matchup here by decision. Lapulius, as much as he's pretty fun, he's very accurate in his strikes, he is low volume, and he's not really the most powerful guy, so I'm not really going to expect a finish out of him there. Eduarda Moura versus Denise Gomes should be very, very fun. Eduarda Moura has kind of proven to be a very, very good prospect and definitely a girl to keep your eye out for. The problem is she just missed weight by a lot in her last fight, which is just not really a good look at all. When I do look at her and see her 10-0 record, and I do genuinely believe that Eduarda Moura one day might be able to run into the rankings, and I feel like a win over Denise Gomes is one really good way to do that, because she just fought the ranked Angela Hill in her last fight. But in that fight, Angela Hill was able to get takedowns and looked pretty good and composed on the feet as well. And Eduarda Moura is a dominant wrestler. She is big for 115 pounds, which is why she did miss weight by so much. But if she misses weight again, I feel like the UFC might tell her, no more fights at strawweight, you're going to have to fight at flyweight. And then all of a sudden we might be having the conversation saying that she's not going to be the biggest flyweight in the world, because there are a lot bigger flyweights out there than what Eduarda Moura would look like there. But she does use her size well. She absolutely dominated her opponent, Janina Silva, on the ground in her Contender Series fight. She dominated monster right Conejo Ruiz, who is a pretty decent wrestler, but is very undersized for 115 pounds. Could maybe make atomweight if that was a division in the UFC. And before that, there was nothing on her whatsoever. I remember actually trying to research her for the Contender Series, and I couldn't really find anything on her aside from one fight, but she has proven to be a very talented grappler, a very talented wrestler. Hopefully she can make the weight, and if she does, I do really like her to beat Denise Gomes here. Denise Gomes is just really scrappy. Now, she is not the most talented striker in the world, as in the most technical striker. I should say she is talented. She's very talented, but she's not the most technical striker in the world. She just wants to come forward and she wants to throw bombs. She had a very good performance when she took on Bruna Brazil and she knocked her down multiple times in that one there, and then she knocked out Yasmin Yorigi in 15 seconds, I believe. But then she took the big step up against Angela Hill, and Angela Hill was able to beat her by decision there. I think that Eduarda Moura definitely should be able to take down Gomes. Gomes is scrappy. She's going to be a lot smaller than Moura, though, and I think that Moura should be able to dominate on the ground. I genuinely think that we should see a finish out of Moura in this one here, just with her grappling style. Maybe a ground and pound TKO, but most likely a submission, in my opinion. So give me Eduarda Moura to win this matchup by finish. Now, Daniel Marcos is going to be taking on John Castaneda, and this is, this might sound a little bit crazy, but I have kind of been waiting on an opportunity to pick against Daniel Marcos, and I was kind of hoping to do it when he did fight someone where he was a massive favorite, and I could pick a big underdog to beat him. But I am going to pick John Castaneda to win this one here, even though the odds are even, and I think they're actually trending in the direction of John Castaneda actually becoming the favorite in this matchup. And it is just because I'm not that sold on Daniel Marcos. I never really have. I embarrassingly did pick against him when he took on Brandon Lewis because he hadn't fought for like 3 years, and all of the tape that I could see was him beating up guys that were significantly smaller than him. He goes out there against Brandon Lewis, defends 11 takedowns. I think Lewis shot for 13 takedowns, got 2 of them, and just looked really good and really promising on the feet there. He beats Simon Oliveira, defends a lot of takedowns, I think 2 or 3 takedowns in that one there. But Oliveira is just a grappler. He's got absolutely nothing else aside from that. He's a guillotine merchant or guillotine merchant. Yeah, Simon Oliveira, it's a cool win, but I did pick Marcos to win that one, sorry. He was meant to fight Daniel Santos, then fought Davy Grant, probably lost that fight, and then absolutely smoked the nutsack of Archie Long. But yeah, Daniel Marcos, man, like he's a very good striker with good takedown defense from what we've seen so far, but he can be quite low volume, even though I think he is landing a pretty decent amount of strikes per minute in his career so far. He can be quite low volume, and I think he can be overpowered as well. And I'm looking at a guy like John Castaneda, who is not a small guy for bantamweight by any means, but who is a guy as well that is going to be willing to go out there and get takedowns. And I say that John Castaneda is not a small bantamweight. Kyung Ho Kang must be absolutely gigantic for the weight class, because Kyung Ho Kang looked gigantic compared to Castaneda in that matchup. But in that fight, Castaneda was able to mix up the striking, mix up the boxing, was able to get the takedowns as well when he needed. I think he even got 4 takedowns on Kyung Ho Kang, if I remember the stats of that fight correctly. Before that, beat Muin Gafarov, which is a very impressive win. Gafarov, I think, did accept that fight on short notice. I thought at the time Gafarov was better than he is. I think Gafarov hasn't had as much success in the UFC as I did expect. But yeah, you know, like I look at Daniel Marcos' career and I look at his fight against Daniel Santos. I was going to pick Daniel Santos in that one. I was going to pick Victor Hugo in that one. He would have beaten Carlos Ferreira for sure, I'm pretty sure. But I think John Castaneda is going to be the guy to take that O from Daniel Marcos. You know, Daniel Marcos, I don't think he trains at this gym anymore. He trains in the USA under a former UFC fighter whose name I have forgotten. which is just really awkward. But he's a former featherweight. Charles Rosa. Charles Rosa, if I'm not mistaken, is his head coach, or at least was his head coach when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. And John Castaneda. I think that John Castaneda is going to go out there. He's going to shoot for takedowns. He's going to mix in the striking. He's going to be high volume. He's going to make it dirty. He's going to make it scrappy. And Daniel Marcos, I don't think, is going to like it. You know, Davey Grant was able to have a lot of success by throwing a lot of volume in that matchup. I think John Castaneda can almost, like, not copy Davey Grant game plan at all, because Davey Grant is a very, very good, very underrated fighter, very underrated striker as well. Gave Adrian Yanez a lot of problems. But I think Castaneda can go out there, mix in the boxing, make it scrappy on the feet, and also shoot for takedowns and use that size against Daniel Marcos. So once Daniel Marcos has to start worrying about the takedowns, then he won't he'll be more open on the feet as well. So I do like Castaneda in this one here. I like him to mix in the takedowns a lot, and I do like him to get the win here by decision. I think he is going to wrestle. I think he's going to mix in the strikes, and I think Marcos is just going to get overwhelmed because he likes to be a pretty low volume striker. He likes to control the fight. Castaneda's not going to let that happen. Andrea Lee is going to be fighting Montana De La Rosa. The first time I looked at this fight, I actually did think of predicting Montana De La Rosa to win by decision, because Montana De La Rosa is actually a very talented wrestler. And if you do look at Andrea Lee, she's on a pretty big losing streak right now to wrestlers. She just lost to Miranda Maverick. She just lost to Natalia Silva, who's not a wrestler, but she lost to Macy Barber, who was taking her down. She lost to Viviane Araujo, who was out grappling her in that one there. But Montana De La Rosa, she's on a 3-fight losing streak herself. One of those losses can be, a couple of them can be very much forgiven. The loss to Macy Barber can be forgiven. The Tatiana Suarez loss can be forgiven. In fact, she might have even won the first round in that fight. But the JJ Aldrich loss was weird because she didn't wrestle. And that's what makes Montana De La Rosa a very good fighter at women's flyweight, is her very good wrestling ability that she does have. It got her a finish over Ariane Lipsky, who's managed to go on a little bit of a run recently, and she won that fight by ground and pound using her very good wrestling. Andrea Lee is going to be the significantly better striker in this matchup. She actually is a very, very good Muay Thai fighter with a Muay Thai background, but Natalia Silva, I guess, was just better than Andrea Lee, if that makes sense. Like, they both fought with a somewhat similar sort of style, but Natalia Silva was a lot faster. Natalia Silva could see everything coming, and Andrea Lee was outclassed in that matchup on the feet. But when I look at her versus Montana De La Rosa, I'm very confident that Andrea Lee is going to be the better striker in this matchup here. It just comes down to whether or not Montana De La Rosa is going to be shooting for takedowns, and whether or not she can be getting those takedowns over and over and over again, because she's going to need to be getting those takedowns over and over and again to get to beat Andrea Lee, who is going to be landing strikes on her. She is a very talented striker, and if you do compare the losses to Andrea Lee and De La Rosa, there is one common opponent in there with Macy Barber. Some people definitely think that Lee beat her. She lost to Natalia Silva, which is all good, and then Miranda Maverick, I think, is actually ranked right now as well, and if not, is definitely very close to the rankings. So the girls that Andrea Lee has been losing to more recently, especially when you just compare a loss to Miranda Maverick and a loss to JJ Aldrich, I do think that they are kind of different sort of fights. JJ Aldrich is kind of up and down at the moment, just outside of the rankings, and then Miranda Maverick seems to be going on a bit of a run right now, and was a very hyped up prospect at some point. It just comes down to the striker versus grappler matchup. If you believe that Montana De La Rosa is going to attempt takedowns and will be shooting for them over and over again, you definitely could make a very good argument for her to win. But I am going to be predicting Andrea Lee to win this one here. Her takedown defense is decent. It's not incredible, but it's decent, and she is going to be a significantly better striker, and that's just what it comes down to. I think she's going to be landing volume, and I also think she's going to be landing damage. I didn't expect the Tapology votes to be like this. That's interesting. I do like Lee in the fight, though, but if you like De La Rosa, let me know in the comments below, because it seems like the very slight majority, or at least 50-50, is going to be on De La Rosa. Then we have Brad Katona taking on Jesse Butler. Brad Katona's minus 500. I think the odds might even be wider than that right now. Jesse Butler, this is 135. That's right, yeah, so Jesse Butler, I believe, was a featherweight on the regional scene, and then he fought Jim Miller on very short notice, saved that fight, did the UFC a bit of a favor, and now I think he's kind of maybe done a test weight cut, or he's thought things through, and he's seen the 135-pound division, and he's thought to himself that he can make a bit of a run at that weight class instead of 145, which is, I believe, where he was fighting all of these guys. Man, this is not a good matchup for him, though. I just don't think it is at all. I understand he's a very talented grappler, but Brad Katona's good. He's got lot more experience than his professional record shows. He's been on the Ultimate Fighter 2 times. He's trained with Conor McGregor for most of his career as well, to my knowledge, and he's got crazy cardio. That is how he managed to defeat Cody Gibson in that absolute war. Now, Cody Gibson come out there and found a lot of success in that matchup, especially in round number 1, but Katona was able to keep up that insane pace that those two were putting on in round number 2 and round number 3. And another way that Katona likes to fight, which is just horrifically boring, I'll be honest, and is not a fight that should be in front of a crowd, is shoot for takedowns and then just lay and pray. But he gets takedowns over and over and over again, big time into the chain wrestling. Sometimes can be getting 8, 9, 10 takedowns in a 3-round fight. Kind of like Moura, but maybe just not quite at the level of Moura, if that makes sense. He did recently lose to Garrett Armfield. Armfield has shocked me a lot, to be honest with you. I definitely horrifically underrated how good Garrett Armfield's boxing is. He defeated the guy from Japan, whose name has once again slipped my mind, but he defeated him and looked amazing on the feet. And Armfield just, he showed up in the UFC, lost that short notice debut, and now he's beating Brad Katona. I think this is a good comeback for Brad Katona here. Jesse Butler is just a really good pure grappler. I know the fight lasted like 10 seconds against Jim Miller, but the striking didn't look good. The striking didn't look confident. I think Brad Katona's going to go out there and get the takedowns he needs to, because Butler's probably going to want the fight on the ground. But even on the feet, Katona's a very high volume striker, a decent boxer, trained with Conor McGregor over and over again, probably is part of Conor McGregor's training camp right now, even though he is a bantamweight and it's going to be a lot smaller than Chandler. I'm sure the skill set will still probably transfer over a little bit. I think Brad Katona's going to win. I think he's going to finish Jesse Butler. It's in front of a crowd. He's probably going to be a little bit more motivated to get a finish as well after losing that decision to Garrett Armfield. I think it's a good opportunity for Katona to get a finish. I know I didn't really break down too much about Jesse Butler's game in that one, but I don't know. I'm just not super sold on him. I'll be honest. I don't think it's a good matchup for Jesse Butler. And Charles Radtke is going to be fighting Carlos Prates. And I feel like Radtke is probably going to be a pretty popular underdog, because he's coming to the UFC and he's been a bit of a polarizing figure. He did defeat Raheem Forrest, which is a very talented up-and-coming guy and a very good fighter. And it does make sense that he was signed to the UFC off of that win. Although he did have a 7-3 record at the time, he was on a win streak, had beaten and turned away some young up-and-coming prospects like Forrest and Piesma. He goes out there and beats Blood Diamond, a fight that I was actually in attendance for. I got to witness Blood Diamond's final fight in the UFC, and it will be his final fight in the UFC because he just got slept by a lightweight on the regional scene. Madness. And then he goes out there and he knocks out Gilbert Urbina. Now, Carlos Prates, I think he's really good. I do. I'm maybe a little bit too sold on him, and I do want to warn you that whenever I get really hyped up on prospects, and I think that they're very talented, they seem to lose all the time. Trying to think of a recent example, but the guy that just knocked out Terrence McKinney, Esteban Redovich, shot super high on him, and then he lost to Loa Grantsabov. Zach Reese, I was really high on him. He's actually on this card, and then he got TKO'd due to that slam. It just happened. But Carlos Prates, he may have beaten the curse, because he won his debut, he knocked out Trevin Giles, although he was losing that fight until he did get the massive KO. But if you do watch Carlos Prates fight, he is a very interesting fighter, and honestly probably is one of the only fighters in the UFC that actually kind of fights with the style that he does. He's got Muay Thai tattooed on his chest. He's not really going to be hiding anything about what he's going to try and do, but he's got a very interesting striking style with the fact that his hands are by his hips, but he throws very, very straight shots. All of the punches that he throws are straight shots. He uses that long reach very, very well, throws a lot of long kicks up the middle, or front kicks up the middle as well, a lot of leg kicks, a lot of body kicks, and he's just got crazy power in those hands. I believe he knocked out Mitch Ramirez with a jab or straight left. I think he got this massive jab KO over Charles de Bronx. We'll pretend it's Charles de Bronx. But yeah, if you actually go through his regional scene fights, he's very, very fun. Now, the reason why all of a sudden we started to see Carlos Prates going out there and getting all of these massive wins is because he improved his takedown defense tremendously from about 2019 onwards, because in the past, he was getting taken down a lot. That is how he was losing a lot of these fights. He was getting taken down. He was getting controlled, especially in this one here. Got submitted in this one here. And after that, I don't think prior to signing to the UFC, he'd actually ever been taken down since 2019. He had not been taken down for years. He hadn't been taken down for multiple fights. And he's knocking all these guys out in the first round. He goes out there against Trevin Giles. Did struggle a little bit with the jab of Giles. And Giles did kind of have a lot of success because Prates was way too patient in that fight. But he eventually did end up landing the big shot anyways to get the KO win, which was super impressive. Radtke isn't going to be as good of a striker as Trevin Giles, but he's going to be a lot more aggressive in trying to get the fight down to the ground. You could even say that he's going to be the stronger guy in this matchup, but I do believe in the takedown defense of Carlos Prates. I do think that Carlos Prates hasn't really proven it yet in the UFC, but he has proven it on the regional scene against much lesser wrestlers than Radtke, of course, that he does have solid takedown defense. And I do think that Radtke is going to be there to be hit by the absolute sniper that is Prates. Prates loves to throw shots straight down the middle. I think he is going to land on Charles Radtke, even though Radtke's a very tough guy. I do think that Prates is going to land that shot, and I think he is going to find the knockout. So give me Prates in this one here. I do like him. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I mean, Radtke is a funny guy on the mic. I mean, he said what he said because he didn't like the crowd. I was in that crowd, by the way. And then, yeah, but to be fair, it was blood diamond. Come on. But, yeah, then he kind of alluded to that moment as well after the win over Urbina. He's a funny guy, but I do like Prates in this one here. I think Prates is a very talented guy and a guy to keep your eye out for. Thiago Moises versus Ludovic Klein. I feel like this might be the fight that gets the most chatter in the We Want Picks Discord that people are going to be agreeing or disagreeing on. I am going to be picking the underdog in the fight, Thiago Moises. I'm still not entirely sold on Ludovic Klein at 155 pounds. I really liked him at featherweight, and now he's moved up to 155. He's a very small guy for the weight class. 5'7" at 155 is not very big at all, even though he did go out there recently. Oh, he was meant to fight. He was meant to fight Joel Alvarez, if I'm not mistaken. It didn't happen. Damn. Anyway, he was meant to fight Joel Alvarez, which would have been crazy, as Alvarez is probably the biggest lightweight on the roster. Ludovic Klein, former featherweight, of course, moved up, and he's been beating all of these lightweights. He's actually a very talented striker, beat Ignacio Bahamondes. AJ Cunningham doesn't count. Trust me, it just doesn't count. But Klein is a very, very talented, very quick striker at 155 pounds. I do still think that he is pretty small for the weight class. I have seen some people going out there and say that Thiago Moises is small for 155 pounds, and I do have to somewhat disagree. He does have a lot of muscle on him. He is 5'9", which is a pretty typical height for a lot of wrestlers at 155 pounds. It is worth noting that he didn't look amazing, in my opinion, against Mitch Ramirez. He did eventually get the win in the third round, but it kind of looked like he was coasting the whole fight and didn't really have any urgency, which is a little bit of a concern when he's going to be fighting a guy in Ludovic Klein who has all of the urgency. He's got a lot of aggression, a lot of high pace, a lot of quickness, a lot of high volume. He doesn't want the fight on the ground though, and that's exactly where Thiago Moises wants the fight. And that's why I like him, because I do believe that Moises is going to be the bigger fighter in that octagon, and I think that Moises is going to be the better grappler. And I also think that he's going to be able to take down Ludovic Klein more than once in the fight. And even then, as soon as he gets on top of Ludovic Klein, although Klein does have pretty good get-up game, I think that Moises should be able to also be a bit of a wet blanket and control him with his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He did have a couple of good wins. The win over Marquez Costa was very impressive. The Galgos win was good at the time. Hasn't aged very well at all. And he did lose Joel Alvarez. But before that, he also had a very competitive fight with Islam Makhachev. I do think that Thiago Moises, though, is going to be able to go out there and maybe get back on the train that he once was on, because he has kind of slowed down a little bit. As I did say, he was on a very impressive win streak with wins that have aged pretty well. Like the Bobby Green win has aged pretty well. The Johnson and Hernandez win, maybe not so much, but still good wins. And he beat Makhachev, took him to the fourth round, had success. And I think they should be able to go out there and beat Ludovic Klein. And then maybe this might be the moment for Moises to maybe build another win streak where he can get a ranked opponent or someone that's going to get him into the rankings potentially. Who knows? But I do think that we're going to see Moises go out there and take down Ludovic Klein. I do like Moises in the fight. I don't know about submission. I'm going to pick decision because I do feel like there was just no aggression against Mitch Ramirez. That's the problem that I do worry about. There's no urgency. He kind of coasted his way through it. And I do think that Moises is just going to top control and wet blanket Ludovic Klein. And the crowd's not going to love it. But as long as he wins the underdog, I'm gonna feel happy enough about it. Now, Punahele Soriano is moving down to 170 pounds to fight the man who we have not seen in a very long time, Mr. Concussion himself, Miguel Baeza. And, Miguel Baeza, we haven't seen him in a very long time. He's just been getting knocked out by everyone. I mean, Andrea Fialho slept him, Chaos Williams slept him, Santiago Ponzinibbio didn't sleep him. But he's going to be fighting Pillow Hands Punahele here, and I think that the advantage that Punahele is going to have in this matchup, which is why I'm going to be predicting him to win as an underdog in this fight, is the wrestling. I think that we're going to see Pillow Hands Punahele go out there and use that college wrestling background that he does have. Now, I know he did arguably beat, Nick Maximov in a fight, which I picked Nick Maximov to win, and everyone went crazy at me talking about Pillow Hands Punahele's wrestling background and how he had such good wrestling and all that. And I said, well, Maximov has a wrestling background as well if you actually look into it a bit more, but I do digress in that one there. Unfortunately for Punahele, he just hasn't been able to really get going what originally got him to the dance or to this position in the UFC anyway, which is just knocking people out silly in the first round. But what Pillow Hands Punahele does bring to the table is very good wrestling that he doesn't use often, but I'm starting to think that surely someone in his camp, or at least maybe Pillow Hands himself, is thinking to himself, I need to win this fight or else I'm going home. And I feel like maybe a move to 170 pounds, even though he's not even that small of a middleweight from what I've seen anyway, is kind of a move for him to try and restart his career in a way. Maybe restart, just kind of restart and try and build his way back up to where he once was with a big win streak in the UFC with first round KOs galore. I think Miguel Baeza, though, he's a guy that we don't really know how he's going to look right now, but he was all of the rage at one point. You know, he was undefeated in the UFC and he was knocking everyone out, had a very, very talented boxing, but then he lost to Ponzinibbio in a big step up in competition after Ponzinibbio lost to Li Jingliang. I believe that was that fight, but then he just got knocked out a couple of times. The Andrea Fialho loss is actually kind of crazy because I think Fialho just looked amazing in that one and landed multiple combinations on him over and over again, which is odd. I've seen a lot of people pick Baeza. I just don't know how I feel about him coming back after 2 years away. And even then, the thing about Baeza as well is even when he fought Andrea Fialho, we were worried about his chin. And then Fialho slept him. So now I've got to be a little bit more worried about his chin. At least the thing with Pillow Hands Punahele, maybe he won't have to worry about that so much. But I'm thinking surely Punahele is going to be looking at this matchup and seeing that he could get it done with the wrestling. And I think he is going to wrestle. I do. I mean, is that delusion from me? I feel like it might be, but Punahele, I mean, he could maybe get a KO. We haven't really seen it in a while. I mean, he did knock out Dolce Lungwambula, but Dolce Lungwambula is some of the worst fight IQ in UFC history, you know, so it's kind of hard to see, but I do think the Pillow Hands Punahele is going to be able to go out there. I think he is going to wrestle. I'm hoping he wrestles anyway. That's what I'm relying on in this breakdown, and I think he's going to take down Baeza and win a decision. I mean, I'm looking at Tapology votes. Maybe that is just pure delusion because people are expecting him to knock him out, but I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that he's going to have to look back and kind of realize that he needs this fight. And if the wrestling's what's going to get him done, that's what's going to happen. Julian Marquez is now going to be coming back to fight against Zach Reese. Now, if I look at Julian Marquez's career right now in the UFC, and I tell you that this man has won all of his UFC fights by submission, would you believe me if I told you he is not being credited with a takedown in the UFC? It's kind of crazy, because if you look at his stats, I'm pretty confident he's never got a takedown in the UFC, but he's won all of his UFC fights by submission. Julian Marquez is an absolute brawler on the feet. He's a guy that wants to come forward. He wants to throw overhands. He likes to throw hooks. And he likes to bomb away, and he's in very fun fights all of the time. Now, we did lose to Marc-Andre Barriol because Marc-Andre Barriol has a similar style, except he's just a bit higher volume. And in that one there, I think it kind of just come down to a little bit of attrition. You know, Barriol just landed so much volume on him, and he was kind of hunched up against the cage and a little bit gassed out, and he took a lot of damage, maybe a little bit too tough for his own good. Did end up getting stopped in that one, and we haven't seen him for ages. But one thing that he has been focusing on is disc golf, and if you guys don't know, I'm actually I play a bit of disc golf as well. I competed in disc golf, and Julian Marquez is like one of the celebrity disc golfers for a company called Discraft, which is kind of cool to see. So shout out to Julian Marquez for doing that. But yeah, he's going to be fighting Zach Reese, and Zach Reese I mentioned earlier as a guy that I was sold on. I thought this guy was. I thought he was I thought he was going to go on to do good things at middleweight. Although there is, to be fair, not that much evidence of it, because if you look at his career, this guy has not spent a lot of time in the cage. For a guy with, 7 pro fights now, he's barely got around in his career. He's got a 4-minute fight here, but then after that, he finished all of these guys in a minute, finished Eli Aronov in a minute and 14 seconds, and Eli Aronov was a very good prospect, and still is a very, very good prospect as well. A very talented wrestler from Israel, but now Cody Brundage slammed TKO'd him. Zach Reese was trying to latch up a triangle or some sort of submission off his back, pulled guard, I think even, and then just got slammed TKO'd in that fight night, which 2 slam TKOs happened, I think back to back as well. And Brundage actually said that he got the slam TKO because he saw backstage the guy do it on Joe Selecki. Man, my brain is... Drakkar Close do it on Joe Selecki. Maybe it was the other way around, but anyway, that's what happened there. But Zach Reese, though, I do believe in him. I do think he's very good. He is 6'4", so he's going to be quite tall for the weight class. 77-inch reach, so he's got good range for the weight class as well. And if you do actually watch the fights and you do watch the tape, although there really isn't much because he's finishing all of these guys in a minute, I do believe he's also got very good technique. Now, he did try and latch up that triangle choke, which does tell you that he's going to be willing to be on bottom position. He is going to be willing to try and throw up submissions in ways like that. But I think on the feet as well, he has shown to me to at least have decent striking technique. Now, the chin is up in the air a little bit, kind of a little bit of that tall man's defense, but he's never really had to deal with big power coming back his way, which is why it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with a guy like Julian Marquez, who is going to want to be bombing forward, who is going to be throwing bombs on him, man. Probably even won't be opposed to the fight going down to the ground if Zach Reese wants to attempt a takedown, but I think this is a fight that's going to take place on the feet. And I think it's going to come down to whether or not Julian Marquez can pressure forward against Zach Reese and land his bombs. He's not the most technical striker in the world, but he is going to bomb away and he is going to be a powerful guy. Whereas Zach Reese is going to kind of want to have that kickboxing fight where he is going to want to fight from range, throw the kicks, throw his well-timed shots. And he does have, as I said, very solid technique in my opinion for middleweight. It's going to be a clash of those two sort of styles. And I think that Zach Reese should be able to come out on top in the matchup. I don't feel that confidence in it, but especially with the loss to Brundage. But I kind of think back a little bit, and I do kind of think about how much belief I had in Zach Reese before the loss to Cody Brundage. And I'm going to go back to that. I'm sorry, Julian Marquez. I do like Marquez a lot, but unfortunately, I do think that Zach Reese is going to go out there and win the matchup. But once again, let me know what you think in the comments below. I think this is a tough fight, which is going to be hard to predict. A prospect versus a guy who maybe for Marquez is fighting for his career right now. I mean, he might be able to just become a disc golfer and an ambassador for Discraft, but who knows? Yeah, Zach Reese is the pick anyways. Now we can go into the main card. Bruno Ferreira is going to be fighting Dustin Stoltzfus. Dustin Stoltzfus saved his career pretty recently. He was on a pretty bad run. He got submitted by Vieira, and then submitted by Mirsha, and then slipped by Abus Magomedov in 19 seconds. And I feel like if he lost this fight against Pilo Hanspunahali, I think he would have lost his contract in the UFC. He did get a win over Dwight Grant, but Dwight Grant was like 45 years old, coming up from 170 pounds, and Stoltzfus just managed to win a decision against Dwight Grant pretty much in that fight. He beat Pilo Hanspunahali, but now he's been gifted a fight against Bruno Ferreira, who is just an absolute powerhouse. You know, he's 5'10". Hopefully this photo can kind of show it. Kind of does. He's just a massive guy. 5'10", a big boy in the middleweight division, all power, all gas, no brakes, really, for the most part. He does have a judo background. You don't really see it often because he does just like to slug it out on the feet. I very proudly picked him to beat Gregory Rodriguez as a pretty big underdog, and he did sleep with Gregory Rodriguez. Didn't get it done the way I predicted him to do it, but he did it anyway, so I'm going to take that win and run away with it. Did lose to Nursultan Ruzaboyev. Once again, I picked him to lose against Nursultan Ruzaboyev, and he got it done. He knocks out Phil Hawes, who is just probably the chinniest UFC fighter of all time. Sad to see, but now he started a boxing career. So good for you, Phil Hawes. But man, I just really feel like Phil Hawes would be a really good wrestling coach in an MMA gym. But hey, good for you, Phil Hawes, starting a boxing career. That's nuts, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think that we're going to see Bruno Ferreira knock out Dustin Stoltzfus. Now, Dustin Stoltzfus is a very good grappler. He's going to want to get the fight down to the ground, but I think it might just come down to Bruno Ferreira being talented enough in the judo background that he's got, being strong enough in the background that he's just in general as well as being a big boy, and keeping the fight on the feet and just landing the bombs on Stoltzfus, because we've seen Stoltzfus knocked out before. He's not amazing at striking, you know. I think that we're going to see not Pillow Hands Punahali. Why do I keep thinking about him? Bruno Ferreira. I think we're going to see Bruno Ferreira go out there and land the big shots on Dustin Stoltzfus. And I think we are going to see Bruno Ferreira go out there and get a knockout win. We haven't seen any grappling from Bruno in a very long time, but I guess it's just because the striking is working. We just saw him knock out Phil Hawes, who's a talented wrestler. I think we're going to see him knock out Dustin Stoltzfus, who's not as good at wrestling, to be honest with you. I think that this fight is on the main card because I think that Bruno's going to land a big shot. And to be honest with you, I think Bruno's going to land a big shot as well. And so does 94% of the Tapology voters out of 882 people, which is probably roughly like 810 people out of 882 that are going to be picking him to win by KO. Let's move on to Raul Rosas Jr. fighting Ricky Turcios. This is a fight that I believe was booked and then cancelled a long time ago, and now it's been rebooked. I'm lying. I'm just straight up lying. It was only booked in February. Jesus. Anyway, Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Turcios. It's been rebooked for this card. I do like Raul Rosas Jr. in the fight. The thing about him, though, just in my opinion, is I feel like he suffered from a lack of experience against very high-level competition when he did take on Christian Rodriguez in that matchup. Because if you do look through his career, I'm not going to say that these guys aren't high level, but Jay Perrin isn't in the UFC anymore. Mando Gutierrez, I actually picked him to beat Mando Gutierrez because it just was a very good stylistic matchup for him at the time. Mando Gutierrez is a grappler, but Raul Rosas Jr. was the better grappler, so you just needed to put 2 and 2 together there to to understand that one. And before that, he wasn't really beating the best guys. He just kind of beat a lot of guys on the regional scene in Mexico. I believe all of these fights took place. Jay Perrin beat him easily. Christian Rodriguez went out there against Christian Rodriguez. Didn't really dominate him in the first round, but in the first round was getting the takedowns over and over and over again and was just looking like an incredibly talented prospect. But then he gassed out because he really blew his load in that first round trying to get the finish. You're just kind of doing way too much in round number 1. You're not fighting at a pace that he could maintain for 15 minutes. So Christian Rodriguez in the second and third round was able to defend the takedowns a lot better and was able to box him up on the feet, because we did learn as well in that fight that Raul Rosas Jr., his striking isn't that great, unfortunately. But he did beat Terrence Mitchell. I think he actually knocked him out very early in the fight. I'm going to reopen his Tapology profile in 54 seconds. Terrence Mitchell, he follows me on Instagram. Shout out to him. But unfortunately for Terrence Mitchell, he is also a pure grappler, and we didn't really get to see Terrence Mitchell's grappling in this matchup against Rosas Jr. He just left himself wide open, and Rosas landed a massive hook, which did knock him down, and then he finished him up after that. Ricky Turcios is a hard guy to predict because he is actually a very good fighter. He just doesn't fight really good sometimes, I guess, especially this fight against Ayman Zahabi. Now, in hindsight, Zahabi might be the guy because Zahabi's on an absolutely insane win streak right now. But in that fight, he just punched air and didn't really throw that many shots. Just kind of looked like a guy that didn't want to get finished or didn't even really want to win. It's just a really odd performance, a really odd fight to watch. But then after that, he goes out there against Kevin Natividad, who I believe was returning after a long time away. He does win that fight. But Turcios is a talented guy. I actually predicted him to win the Ultimate Fighter in the season that he was on, and he did win the Ultimate Fighter, so pretty happy about that one. But even then, against Brady Highstand, a lot of people think that you could maybe even argue that he won the fight against Turcios. And in that fight as well, Highstand was able to get takedowns over and over and over again. And I think that Raul Rosas Jr. should be able to go out there and get the takedowns over and over and over again. I'm just really hoping that Raul Rosas Jr. and his team have learned from the loss to Christian Rodriguez, because it is a loss that I think that you can take a lot from and learn from and develop as a fighter to get better. And just kind of learn that you don't need to fight at 150% all the time. You know, you can turn it down a little bit, maybe to 100%, maybe to 110% to maintain that pace. Because at the end of the day, you only need to maintain that pace for 10 minutes. You know, if you win the first 2 rounds without getting a finish, but you know that you've won the first 2 rounds, you don't need to win the third round. You only need to win 2 out of 3 rounds in a 3-round fight to win the fight overall. Hoping that Rosas Jr. has either worked on just kind of being a little bit more patient, I should say, or even just worked on his cardio. But I mean, he's a cardio machine. He looked like his cardio looked amazing against Mando. Just that his cardio didn't look as good when he was fighting some resistance and had to deal with a bit of resistance. But I think we're going to see Rosas get the finish in this one here, probably in the second round, but I think it is just going to be one of those situations where Rosas is going out there and taking Ricky Turcios down over again. And, you know, maybe Turcios has success on the feet, because as I said, I'm not too sold on Rosas' striking right now. I mean, he's 19 years old, so it's going to get better. But the way that he wins fights is with the grappling. I do think he hopes, and I do hope that he does go back to that grappling. Dominic Reyes is going to be fighting Dustin Jacoby in the co-main event. 45-minute video, guys. I've been yapping. I mean, this must just be a really long card. It's 14 fights. Okay, it's not too bad, I guess. But yeah, Dominic Reyes is going to be fighting against Dustin Jacoby in the co-main event here, and it is just a Reyes fade, to be honest. Now, you could make a very good argument for Reyes winning the fight. A very good argument for Reyes winning the fight, but to be honest with you, I just don't think he's got the chin anymore. I think it's gone. And we were talking about it being gone when he fought against Yuri. And now it's... No, we weren't. We were talking about it being gone when he fought against Ryan. Sorry. But now it's gone. You know, like, Spann knocked him out with a jab and absolutely slumped him and slipped him badly with a jab. And it's called a power jab, but it was a jab. And he slipped him badly. Yuri, you know, he takes a lot of damage in that one there. Gets slumped over face first, knocked out cold. Against Jan Blachowicz, gets his body absolutely ripped apart, slumped over, knocked out by Jan. And then you could argue he beat John Jones, which is crazy to think about, but he's just kind of had an example of what might be just the craziest. It just shows how crazy the sport is and how unforgiving it truly is, to quote Angelo from We Want Picks. And it's just the most unforgiving sport in the world. You could go from potentially beating one of the greatest fighters of all time, in some people's eyes the greatest fighter of all time in John Jones, and then you're getting slipped by Jan Blachowicz. You're getting slipped out cold, slumped over by Yuri Prohaska, and then Ryan Spann, who just lost to Bogdan Guskov, by the way, sleeps you with a jab. Man, that's crazy to think about. And I look at Dustin Jacoby, and I know he's got a win by KO recently against Dalton Young, but Jacoby's not really a guy that's just sleeping people. I mean, he knocked down Njoku, which doesn't help my case. But before that, he was winning a lot of fights by decision. Former Glory kickboxer. I believe he actually took time away from MMA to focus on his kickboxing career, because if you do look at his career here, he was on the UFC in 2011, maybe was released, maybe decided to leave, who knows. Then focused on a Glory kickboxing career, had some mixed success, didn't get knocked out by one of the greatest strikers in the history of kickboxing, one of the only fighters in the Glory Kickboxing Hall of Fame. You may recognize his name under the name of Alex Pereira. Didn't get knocked out by him, but that happens. Fought for Bellator, once again focused on that Glory Kickboxing career, had a little bit of success, beat Carl Roberson, who happened to fight in the UFC as well, and come back. He come back into the UFC after winning a fight on the regional scene and the Contender Series. And big win streak. A lot of wins by decision. Knocks out Dalton Young in a fight, which I coped a little bit on that one, because I was like, oh, I don't think he's going to be able to knock out Dalton Young. Sleeps him with a straight right. I think that in this fight, Dominic Reyes, I mean, he's got a good chance to win just because he's so dynamic. He really is quite fast. He really is a talented striker. But even then, I feel like maybe if Reyes just doesn't want to get hit in the head anymore, which he has said he's worried about his brain health, and I believe he's got children, he wants to be there for them and all that. It's just so sad. It's just so sad to think about. He might wrestle, he might try and grapple, but it's like Dustin Jacoby's already got good takedown defense, you know? I think we're just going to see Jacoby knock him out. And it's so sad. So sad. I think Jacoby is going to knock him out in a similar way as he did to Dalton Young, with a straight right. He's gonna kick the legs of Reyes. He's gonna kick the body of Reyes. I mean, Reyes showed that he could be hurt to the body against Jan. I mean, Jan like made a massive red mark on his body from Jan just smacking up that body with his kicks. Jacoby's got really good kicks. He's going to kick the legs. He's going to kick the body. He's showing that he can box as well. He fought Miguel Olachechuk with 2 injured legs and just boxed up Miguel Olachechuk, who's a pure boxer. I just think he's going to get knocked out. I think Jacoby's going to knock him out. And that's just what it comes down to, man. It's so sad because Reyes is such a talented fighter, and people that haven't really been watching for that long, they're not going to know. And it's like Tony Ferguson. Let's move on. Jared Cannonier fighting Nasruddin Imavov. The main event, it's a good main event. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to be picking the underdog in this one here again. I think I've picked a few underdogs. It is worth noting that when I pick underdogs, usually my predictions for the card don't end up going that well, but I'm feeling pretty good about this card, and I do like this pick against Cannonier. Now, of Cannonier, I should say, sorry. Jared Cannonier is 40 years old. He's not getting any younger, but in his I guess, like, older age, he's probably looking the best he's ever has in his career, because he fought at heavyweight and then light heavyweight, and now he's at middleweight. He beat Gastelum. He beat Derek Brunson by knocking him out in the second round after Brunson gassed out. Lost to Adesanya in a fight that wasn't that competitive, but was also somewhat competitive as well at the same time. Beat Strickland in a pretty controversial decision, but could go either way. It's just one of those Strickland fights at the end of the day, isn't it? But then he just beats the piss out of Marvin Vettori. Now, Marvin Vettori did gas out towards the end, and Cannonier didn't find a finish, which I guess you could see as a little bit of a red flag. But Cannonier just kind of kept going. He looked really good for 5 rounds. And every time we've seen Nasruddin Imavov go out there and fight for 5 rounds, I believe it has only been... No, he fought at Delize on for 5 rounds as well, or it might have been an absolute muppet. Yes, he did. He fought against Delize over 5 rounds, and he also fought against Sean Strickland on short notice over 5 rounds, though in that matchup where I guess Strickland took that fight on short notice, but it moved up to 205 pounds. He's gassed out every single time, or he's looked like he's been gassed every single time towards the end there. And I do think that even though Imavov might go out there and find success in round 1 and 2, he might get takedowns, he might find success on the feet even against Cannonier. I think eventually Cannonier is going to be able to put him on him in round 3, 4, and round 5, especially. We just saw Cannonier beat the piss out of Marvin Vettori. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. I think that Cannonier's takedown defense is going to be good enough to deal with Nasruddin Imavov, who is a decent wrestler, but to be honest with you, I don't think he's the best wrestler in the world. There's been a little bit of drama at his gym with MMA Factory with what's his name? The guy that was the head of operations of PFL Europe, and a big enemy of Ali Abdelaziz, Fernando Lopez. Fernando Lopez, I believe, has been removed from the MMA Factory. He's no longer the head of operations there, so a little bit of drama at the gym. Maybe not a big deal, maybe a big deal, who knows? But I don't think Imavov is going to be able to take down Jared Cannonier for 3 out of 5 rounds. And I think for as long as the fighter's on the feet, Jared Cannonier is going to be the better fighter. He's going to be the more volume striker as well, especially later on into the fight. And I think he's going to be the more powerful guy as well. I think that if anyone's going to be able to find a knockout on the feet in this matchup, it is going to be Jared Cannonier. He is definitely going to have to defend some takedowns, but it is worth noting as well, for a very long time, Jared Cannonier has been rumored to be fighting against Khamzat Chimaev. And, you know, if Cannonier has been hearing himself in these rumors for Chimaev, and maybe the fight has even been booked and just never announced in the past, because, of course, Chimaev's coach was talking about how he was looking into tape, and it was tape of Jared Cannonier. You know that he's been working on takedown defense, and I know that Jared Cannonier will be able to to defend the takedowns of Nasruddin Imavov. Cannonier's really trying to get a title shot right now as well, because he is 40 years old. He's not going to get any younger at all, and he wants that title shot. But the problem is, you know, you've got guys like Strickland out there also gunning for the title shot. You got Adesanya, who's, in my opinion, shouldn't get the title shot because he lost to Strickland and hasn't done anything, but he's probably going to get it anyway. He's going to have to knock out Imavov spectacularly to leapfrog at least Sean Strickland in that line to fight against Dricus du Plessis. I don't know if anyone can just get past Adesanya. I think Adesanya versus du Plessis is probably already signed, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think Jared Cannonier goes out there. I think he beats Imavov. The official pick is a decision, but I would like to see a knockout just for his case of trying to get a title shot. But yeah, it just kind of comes down to the fact that every time Imavov has fought 5 rounds, he has gassed out. Cannonier's been able to keep it going. I think he's the more powerful striker. I think he's the better striker. And I also think that Cannonier is going to be able to defend the takedowns and keep the fight on the feet. So that's just what it comes down to. Give me Cannonier by decision. Maybe we see a KO from him, but I do like Cannonier to win a decision in this fight. And that's the predictions for the card. I'll be honest, not the best poster in the world, but it is what it is. And I think next week we've got a UFC Apex card, which I am looking forward to. It is actually a pretty decent Apex card in Perez versus Teixeira. Good card. Looking forward to it. That's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.